everyone, today's review is going to be SP Parfums Rose Polaroid. So I'm going to give this one a test drive today. That's why I'm in my car, and you get it, and I'll let you know how it goes. So here's my update, here's my final review for SP Parfums Rose Polaroid. I've been wearing it all day long, so that means it's a working day. It's a normal working day actually. I've not been doing my usual 12-hour shifts. I'm just back onto normal days for a couple of weeks. So it's been about nine and a half hours since I applied the fragrance, and I wanted to give you my thoughts on it. So when you first spray the fragrance, you get a very cold opening. It's almost like a frozen rose. If you imagine a kind of a metallic frozen rose, and there's this bitter green frozen grass at the same time, there's this mist in the air. It's so clean, it's so icy cold and super clean, it's almost sterile, this greenness and this rose. The rose is not plush or fruity or very sweet. It's extremely clean but not soapy. Nothing soapy here. It is just that it's so sterile, clean and sharp. There's a hint of some moss and maybe a little bit of earth, and just the teeniest, tiniest little hint of something sweet, but I can't quite pinpoint what it is. So the fragrance does change, so that's how it opens up, but it does warm up. So it starts off so cold, so cold, but it warms up on your skin, and slowly over time I was getting a smokiness and a woodsiness. There was just a bit of a peppery thing going on that just warmed it up even more. So it's kind of like smoky woods, incense, pepper, and a very savoury kind of pepper, almost like a red pepper. I think they're called cilantro. I'm not sure the proper word for it, but you know, a bell pepper, like a big pepper like that. Kind of a bit like that, but also with some peppery pepper as well, you know, like black pepper. What I found was the fragrance, as it changes on your skin, it just gently becomes more and more woody and less about the rose. But the rose is very much the cold rose is very much the main player for the first. Oh sweetie, my cat wants to join in. Come here then, babe. The rose is the main player pretty much for the duration. It's just these last couple of hours, last 2 or 3 hours, it hasn't been all about the rose. It's been more about the woodsiness and this sort of incensiness, almost like a sacred wood kind of. It reminds me of SP Parfums. I think it's called Sacred Wood, the Christmas one, that Palo Santo, a little bit like that in the dry down. As it dries down, the fragrance is less green and less sharp, and it gets more fuzzy as well, kind of like naughty musks going on, like smelling the sheets of someone who's had quite a fun night. That musky kind of skin scent feel, very milky for the sort of, once you get past the first hour or so, the fragrance becomes kind of milky, creamy, but not in a sweet. The cat's playing with this book, but not in a sweet gourmand way. A kind of a milky, woodsy way. I'm going to list the official notes on the screen for you now. I just didn't want to, that'd be here or something. I just didn't want to read them and have them force things into my mind that weren't there. I wanted to tell you how it smells to me. Now, in terms of the projection and longevity, oh sorry babe, I've just elbowed her in the head. The projection and longevity is excellent, you cannot fault it. I would say that Rose Polaroid is something that you should try if you like your fragrances more on the artistic side of things. If you're a fan of perfumers that push the boundaries, that don't create fragrances mass appealing. This is nothing like you would ever find in a department store. It's really quite different. If you're like me, if you really like your fragrances to be a little bit sweet, if you like them to be a little bit gourmand, if you like a nice heavy dose of vanilla, it's probably not going to be for you. But if you are into fragrances like Zoologist, experimental, pushing the boundaries, that kind of thing, then it may well be something you'd be interested in. It definitely isn't going to be for everybody. It is quite an interesting fragrance. It changes on your skin, which is a really good thing. I like a fragrance that will take me on a little bit of a journey, and this one certainly does. Whether it's something that I would choose to wear in normal circumstances, I'm not sure, because there is a slight naughty, dirty edge to it that doesn't necessarily work for me. I do like things to be a bit fluffy and a bit sweet, but overall I think it's really, really interesting. And if you want to smell a kind of cold take on rose, something that hasn't been plushed up or jammified, but actually almost stripped bare and then frozen to be admired in many years to come. You know how some people freeze their eggs? God, what am I doing? Yeah, just imagine that you've taken a rose and you've stripped it bare and you've frozen it, and you're smelling that frozen rose. It really is like that. It's kind of a scientific experiment in rose. And actually the inspiration for the fragrance is called Rose Polaroid, because it's supposed to be to do with that initial flash of a Polaroid and the effect that has. So I guess that can be interpreted in some ways. It's maybe why it's coming across as sort of cold, almost sort of chemically sterile, but really, really interesting. And if it sounds like it might be up your tree, then definitely get some samples and see what you think. So that was my review of SP Parfums Rose Polaroid. I hope you enjoyed. Let's just have some sweetie action. She's purring behind me.